Welcome back to the show. Well, I was about to do my Road Dogg intro, but it is me and the man, the myth, the legend. It is 83 weeks with Mr. Eric Bischoff. Eric, how are you? And Happy New Year, sir.
Happy New Year to you, Casio. I am doing fan-friggin-tastic. That's how I'm doing.
I'm excited to hear you're on the Carnivore Diet.
I am.
Last time we talked, you were just coming off fasting. Now you're full-blown in the Carnivore Diet.
I actually, Casio, I'm starting my second 5-day fast today. So there's something about you and I. It's like whenever you and I do a show together, I don't eat for 5 days. Don't take it personally.
You see my face and you're like, I've lost my appetite for a while.
No, I kind of made a commitment to fast once a month for 5 days. And there's reasons behind it. I don't necessarily need to go into all of it, but it's very, very healthy. And it regenerates a lot of the cells in your organs and your heart and your lungs and your stomach and your liver and your intestines and all that good stuff. And I figured I need a good clean out at least once a month. So I am water fasting, but I have been on the carnivore diet since you and I spoke last. Last night was my last meal for the next 5 days. And I'm telling you, man, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. I did it as an experiment because I read a lot about it and saw Dr. Sean Baker on Joe Rogan and really caught my interest. And I love experimenting with nutrition. Some people work on their cars to try to make them faster. I work on my metabolism to try to make it faster and be healthier. So I, heard a little bit about this carnivore diet and I thought, I'm going to give this a try. I didn't do it for weight loss. That wasn't my game. But I just wanted to see how it made me feel. I had read about the mental clarity and the energy and the focus and all of that. And I thought, why not? I'll try it for a month. If I like it, I like it. If I don't, I don't. I like meat. No big deal. I'll never go back.
Wow.
And I love my salads and my greens. I mean, I ate fairly healthy anyway, healthy by, most people's standards, but I feel 100% better. And I felt pretty good then. So I'm a believer, man. And I'm doing it with Riverbend Ranch meats, Riverbend Ranch Black Label meats. It's all of their beef, their Angus. They've been working on breeding this herd for like 27 years to get the perfect breeding in place. So you get the best quality meat and marbled and all of that. But Riverbend Ranch, they not only raise their own cattle, they do it high up in the mountains, real high altitude where the grass is really lush. So the cows are really healthy and live out there in the mountains. But they also have their own processing plant, which is a really big deal to me because 80% of the meat is processed in this country, whatever you buy in a grocery store, by one of three basic processors. It's kind of like the big three. Well, Riverbend Ranch, they have their own processing plant. And what makes that even cooler, no pun intended, is they have an aging cooler where they age all of their beef. I believe it's 28 days at 30 degrees. And the end result is the quality of the meat is unbelievable. So that's what I'm living off of. I love it. If you want to check it out, if you check their prices, I'll give you a thing here and you can check their prices and compare Riverbend Ranch meats to some of the more nationally recognized, box meat delivery systems. You'll find that not only is Riverbend Ranch, they grow their own, they process their own, they age their own, they deliver to your door, unlike anybody else, but it's less expensive. So go to getriverbend.com. That's getriverbend.com. You'll see all the information you need, and you too. Whether you go on a carnivore diet or not, at least enjoy the highest quality meat you can find anywhere. Unless you're in like a steakhouse in New York or Chicago, dropping 85 big ones on the steak, you will not find a steak as good as this anywhere. So check it out. GetRiverbend.com. Damn it!
Give me an example of what was your last meal last night? What were we eating last night?
Ribeye.
Ooh, no sides.
No sides.
Just a big ribeye.
Just a big ass ribeye. Now guess what I had for dessert?
What?
3 hard-boiled eggs. This is my life.
Pie or 3 hard-boiled eggs? That's a hard choice.
Yeah, that was my dessert. But no, I love it, man. Like I said, I hate to be coming off like some kind of an evangelist and trying to convince people to change their lives. I'm not doing that. All I'm telling you is get this. You'll dig this. And so will your wife, by the way. She should look into this. Have her Google Dr. Shawn, Shawn Baker. He wrote a book called The Carnivore Diet. If Judy were to read this book, given what she's doing, intense bodybuilding and all that, she should take a quick look at this.
Shawn Baker.
Shawn Baker, Shawn Baker, MD. You can find him on Twitter. He was on Joe Rogan. He's got his own podcast. First of all, he's an orthopedic surgeon. He's been on the carnivore diet for 8 years. So it's not like he's just some tinfoil hat, goober coming up with new ideas and publishing them. This guy he's an orthopedic surgeon. He's been on the carnivore diet for 8 years. And the guy's like 6'5", 260. He's establishing world records. He's 57 years old, establishing world records in rowing, which is not an easy thing to do. Rowing, yeah. He's a competitive rower. If you can believe that. But check it out. If nothing else, you'll get some great information.
All right, here we go. Let's go. Let's get on the carnivore diet. This sounds like my kind of deal right here.
Dude, you get up in the morning and have a half a pound of bacon for breakfast every day, and you're doing the right thing.
There we go. Let's check it out. All right, but this is a Ask Eric Anything episode, which are always fun to get to pick your brain from whatever avenue they want to drive down. But before we get to the fan questions, Eric, I want to hit some topics that are trending. And first, you've discussed at length over on Strictly Business with John Alba. Great show. Y'all should go check that out if you did not hear. You recently documented at length The Rock's return to the WWE and your thoughts on it. And for those who haven't heard, maybe the Cliff Notes, what can you share us about the Great One's return?
Well, I mean, I really don't have much of a perspective on it other than probably everybody else's, which is, holy crap, I can't believe this is happening. He's back. I didn't think that would happen. But it is. And I think what's really exciting is what are the options, creatively, what's going to happen, right? That's why they're doing it. And there's some options there. And I think both Elba and I agreed, this doesn't happen too often, but Elba and I agreed that it makes most sense to us, at least, to have Rock show up at,
Australia, Perth.
Yes.
Elimination Chamber.
Elimination Chamber.
Yeah.
Amazing. I actually created the concept, Elimination Chamber. I introduced it to the world, and I can't remember the name of it. Which should tell you everything you need to know about whether or not I really came up with that concept or whether it was Triple H, but whatever. But yeah, I mean, WrestleMania is like the Super Bowl, right? Well, why not have 2 Super Bowls if you can? And certainly with Rock there in Perth, it sets the stage for future international growth. And I think that's, I'm guessing, a big part of the strategy. If you look at the dots and connect a few of them since Nick Khan has come on board and is steering the ship, a lot of emphasis placed on international PLEs or pay-per-views. And I think that this is a great way to do that. So I think I'd like to see Rock Roman in Perth. I'd like to see Roman beat Rock because it makes the most sense to me, and then set up a monster of a pay-per-view with Cody and Roman for all the marbles. That's what I'm hoping is going to happen.
Well, let's talk about the international events, because they announced 4 international premium live events in 2024. Money in the Bank is going to be taking place in Toronto, Ontario. Elimination Chamber, like we mentioned, in Perth, Australia. Backlash is from France, and the Bash in Berlin, Germany. Talk about, from a company perspective, the WWE's expansion into international waters. This is a big step for the company, is it not?
Well, it is a big step, and it comes with a price because it's difficult. I mean, you've got the time difference, number one, and I think with people becoming more accustomed to getting things on demand, that's probably less of an issue than it would have been, say, 20 years ago, when you've got a pay-per-view going on in prime time over in the UK, and it's at whatever time here, 2:00 in the morning here in the States or whatever.
Right.
That makes it difficult. But now I think with on-demand, people have become more accustomed to getting their content in that regard, and probably don't mind the fact that it's not live quite as much for big events like this, especially international ones. But I think the real money is, just like we've seen here in the United States, where, major markets are competing and bidding for the rights to host a WWE premium live event. And if you're able to expand that business model and that revenue stream internationally, the growth potential in terms of revenue is pretty freaking interesting. And it appears to me, again, just on the outside looking in, that that's what the strategy is, and why Perth, and possibly why Rock, hopefully in Perth.
Yeah, it reminds me of NFL announcing all these games overseas. And at first, playing in London one time was not a big deal. They complained about the travel, and now there's some of them are going for 2 weeks. Now we're about to get Mexico. We've already did one in Germany, and they're going to add more next year. It's a business. They've always got to figure out how to grow.
And that's the point right there. I've gotten criticized, particularly at Strictly Business and here on 83 Weeks, when I talk about, one of my critiques I have of AEW and an observation is this is just not growing. There's no metric that you could point to that say it's growing. You can point to ticket sales in the UK and go, oh yeah, but they did that. Well, okay, that's a one-off. In the meantime, they're having a hard time selling 4,000, 5,000 tickets to a Dynamite production here in the States. So when I say it's a one-off, it really is an outlier more than it is representative of a pattern. Again, patterns are my thing. But in WWE's case, I would say there's an argument in some respects, strictly from a business point of view, that they're kind of maxed out. I mean, how much more growth can you see with WWE here in the United States? Can we see a fourth show in prime time? I don't think so. Doesn't make sense. It's oversaturation. Can we see more volume, more numbers of PLEs instead of doing 12 or whatever it is they do? I don't even know. Add 20%, add 30%. Again, I think you're approaching saturation at that point in interest. Live events, we know that the live event business has changed. Yes, you can go to more larger markets, but the smaller market pay-per-views, live events, non-televised live events, are difficult to make money in. So you're not going to see expansion there. It's a little bit like the NFL. Where is the NFL going to expand here in the United States? Arguably, they have 100% of the potential market for their product. Anybody that's interested in watching the NFL is watching the NFL.
Right.
But the opportunity for growth in the NFL clearly is outside domestic U.S. borders. And I think that's what we've been seeing with the NFL. And I think that's what we're beginning to see strategically with WWE.
Let's talk about somebody who recently retired from WWE January 1st, Mr. Kevin Dunn. What's your thoughts on him moving from the company? I'd love to hear any fun memories you have personally with your run in WWE with him. And then what do you think his legacy will be?
Unfortunately, I think that his legacy within the internet wrestling community will probably not be that positive, but that's because the majority of the people in the internet wrestling community have no idea how important Kevin Dunn has been to the growth of the industry. Kevin is not a people person. You got to really get to know Kevin, and he's got to get to know you before you really see his personality. He's a funny guy. I enjoy hanging with him. The last time I saw Kevin was about 1.5 or 2 years ago, and it was after a show, and he and I and Michael Hayes sat down and had a beverage or more. And I've always liked Kevin. He's not the kind of guy that you're going to go hang with necessarily and just have a blast with. He's a very serious cat. And I think if you look at the WWE product over the last 20 or 30 years, the production values of WWE are second to no one from a live event production standpoint. when you look at just how far the production of professional wrestling, particularly WWE's case, has evolved and has set a standard, quite frankly. There is nobody around today that can produce a live event like Kevin Dunn. Now, Kevin, I think, has been good at building a team underneath him, and I think it'll be a seamless transition. I don't think we're going to see any massive changes necessarily because it is such a finely tuned part of the company. But Kevin is as responsible for the growth of this product of professional wrestling as almost anybody in the company. The fact that he's been there as long as he has, he's seen it all, he's done it all, he's been right in the middle of it. He'll never tell his story, I don't think, because that's just not Kevin. But what an amazing story he has. Hats off to him. I think the world of him.
Let's talk about this. In a clinical study, Eric, men who showered with soap and used Mando whole body deodorant in their pits had an odor score of 0 out of 10 after 12 hours. That's no odor. So when we tell you you can smell like a 0, it's because our friends over at Mando want to help you out. Men who showered with soap alone had an armpit odor score of 8 out of 10 after 12 hours. That's some big odor. And Mando is clinically proven to control odor for 72 hours. Wherever you stink, your pits, your package, your feet, and more. Make that switch to Mando whole body deodorant and smell like a 0 every day. Plus, special offer for 83 Weeks customers. Your new customer, you get a $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code and link. That's code 83weeks at shopmando.com. That's shopmando.com. Eric, you've been to many wrestling events, conventions, and shows, and the running joke is always, guys, wrestling fans, use deodorant, quit stinking. But this is just look, my dad always told me, he had one of his main advice he ever told me. He said, wash your ass and don't be an ass, and you'll go far in life. First impressions are a lot. And if you walk up to somebody and you're already stinking, they're not going to want to be around you at all. This is where our friends over at Mando are going to take care of.
I absolutely love this product. And I'm not just talking about it like this because they're a sponsor, and I hope that they stay a sponsor for a long time. But this product is off the charts awesome. And I've tested it. You know, I use that stuff everywhere. You know, what I like about it, like for the deodorant, I put a little dab on my finger. It's oil, and you rub it in. And then when you put your shirt on, you don't have that deodorant, you know, mark on your shirt.
Right.
You know what I mean? Or when you take your shirt off and the pits are all, you know, covered in deodorant and crap like that. 0. It absorbs into your skin. And I'm telling you, absolutely believe the 72-hour gimmick. And I've gone to the gym and I use it on my junk, put up my ass crack, everything. And you go to the gym, you get done working out, sit in the sauna, sweat, and you still don't stink. It's pretty amazing. This product is everything they say it is and more. I'll always use mine.
Plus, you were talking about how much research you do when you dive into a product or a diet or whatever it may be in your life. You just want to know what's behind it. This was created by a doctor who firsthand saw how normal BO was being misdiagnosed and mistreated. So this is baking soda free, paraben free, pH balanced for safe use below the belt, plus clinically proven, like you said, to control odor for at least 72 hours. That's 12 hours after a shower. The average man's grundle odor was about 5 out of 10. With Mando, the average grundle odor level is 0 out of 10.
So who's grundle anyway? This poor bastard had to run around smelling people's pits. Hey, buddy, turn around. I'm going to get into that ass crack, see if I can get a whiff. Come on now.
Here's what we're going to do. We're going to smell your grundle after a normal day. Now we're going to rub this on you, and you come back and let us smell you.
Poor Mr. Grundle woke up one day and said, how the hell did I end up here?
By the way, I'm in. Count me in, my friend. Mando's starter pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice. That's like the mini body wash and the deodorant wipes, and free shipping. That's right. And as a special offer, For 83 weeks listeners, new customers get $5 off a Mando starter pack with code 83weeks at shopmando.com. That equates to over 40% off your starter pack. And when you visit shopmando.com and use code 83weeks, boom, they're going to get you hooked up. Thank you, Mando, for all you do for our grundles and for supporting 83 weeks. Whew, nothing like smelling good, my friend.
Oh, it's awesome.
All right, let's talk about, we talked about Mr. Kevin Dunn, and he's kind of a serious guy. On the other hand, another person who just left the WWE, one of my favorites, but a super fun guy, Mr. Dolph Ziggler, has left and recently showed up in New Japan at their big Tokyo Dome show. What do you think Dolph can accomplish outside the WWE umbrella after being there almost 20 years?
Whatever he wants. He's that talented. He's in excellent shape. I've always, for the last 5-6 years, I've been doing this show. When people ask me, you know, if you had to rebuild the NWO or introduce a new NWO, what are 3 guys would, whatever the question is that's posed to me in terms of a fantasy booking situation, you know, Dolph has been one of my go-tos. I think he's been so underrated and underappreciated for so long. But if you just look at him physically, the guy's in amazing shape. He looks like a world-class athlete. He's like Kurt Angle in a way, in that, and obviously they both have great amateur backgrounds. Kurt being, you know, kind of on a different level, but nonetheless, Dolph has a great collegiate amateur wrestling background. But he's like, to me, he's like Kurt in the sense that if you're head of creative and you sit down with Kurt and say, okay, Kurt, I need you to be a comedic heel, or not a comedic heel, a comedic babyface. I need you to make us laugh. I need you, Kurt, to put smiles on these people's faces. Pal. Kurt can do that. I mean, he's got, and you will appreciate this, he's just got timing, and he's fearless, perhaps because he's a killer and he doesn't have any reason to be afraid, but he's fearless. He'll put himself out there. He'll make an ass of himself. He'll have fun making fun of himself, right?
Yeah.
Not a lot of people are comfortable doing that. Kurt is extremely comfortable. I mean, he's a funny guy by nature, and he can go out and be that comedic baby face. He'd come out with a little tiny cowboy hat on, like in Toy Story or some bullshit. And then you come back the following Monday and go, Kurt, damn it, Kurt. It wasn't that. God, I thought it was a great idea. I need you to be a killer. I want people to be afraid of the very thought of stepping into the ring with you. He can do that in a believable way. The guy can go from a stand-up comedian-esque type professional wrestler to being a legitimate, you know, man killer. And he can do it on a flip a coin. Which one do you want? Do you want funny Kurt? Do you want killer Kurt? Which one do you want? You can have either one of them. And he does them both equally well. Dolph reminds me of that. You know, I haven't seen as much of it out of Dolph as we have over the years out of Kurt, obviously. But he has that ability. And I think, I would imagine he's extremely well off financially. Dolph's been in the business at a pretty high level. He may not be top of the card, you know, year in and year out, but he's been making serious money for what, 15 years?
Yeah, almost 20, yeah.
20 years? So I don't think he's money motivated. I think especially if he's doing stuff for New Japan and on the indie scene, he's doing it up for the passion and the fun. And when you take somebody as talented as Dolph is, and they're physically able to still go out and perform at the level that Dolph is physically able to perform at, but they're not doing it for politics. They're not doing it for notoriety. They're not doing it for the money. They're doing it for the fun, pure passion. That is something that I'm going to make sure that I watch out and enjoy, because I think we're going to see a lot more of it. And I think we'll see more of him having fun.
Dolph debuted in 2008, by the way. He is one of those guys, basically, like you said, that if he's in the ring, I know I'm going to get a good match out of him. And if he grabs a mic, he's one of those guys you go, hang on, we got to watch this. Because you don't know what he's about to say. And most of the time, it's awesome. Whatever the case may be, like you said, whatever his character is supposed to deliver, he is there. So interesting to see what he does over there. Also, changing companies, it is rumored and speculated that Sasha Banks will be signing in AEW. What do you think that does for AEW?
Nothing. How many times have we seen big names come from WWE to AEW and people speculating about how it's going to impact the business and what's going to happen, and nothing happens. It doesn't matter who you bring in there. And I made the comment, I'm going to make it again. AEW is quickly becoming TNA. And I got nearly 1 million views on that comment. And out of the probably 500,000 responses, everybody, buried my comment and me along with it. But this is a perfect example of what I meant. We've seen so many big names come into AEW. Pick one. Let's put CM Punk off to the side. Pick any other one. And the net impact on the growth of the business, other than selling T-shirts, has been zip. Nada. The television audience continues to deteriorate while WWE's continues to grow. You look at their ticket sales outside of anomalies or outliers, I should say, like UK, and they're not doing nearly as well as they were in the past. You look at their Dynamite shows, just check out WrestleTix on social media, and you can see their ticket sales. And they're playing in 10,000, 15,000 seat venues, but they're scaling them down to 4,000. And a week before the event, they haven't sold out yet. So it doesn't matter. And I used to tell Dixie all the time when she'd want to bring in big names. And I know I get busted for that. It's like, oh yeah, but look at all the WWE guys you brought into TNA. I didn't bring them in. I didn't even bring me in. I didn't even really want the job. That was, Dixie Carter had brought in Mick Foley and Sting and Kurt Angle and, Christian Cage and so many others before I ever got there, with the idea that you're bringing in these big WWE names, it's going to move the needle. And I would always tell Dixie, and she hated me for this, I think. She didn't hate me, but she would get frustrated. Because I think word for word, I said to her one day, I said, Dixie, it doesn't matter. If you brought Undertaker and you dropped him from the ceiling as a surprise into the middle of the TNA ring, and then John Cena, this is when they were both, obviously at the top in WWE years ago. And then you have John Cena run to the TNA ring and you shoot an angle. It won't matter. It just doesn't, because the brand, the perception of it, the scale of it is so small that it won't get over. And that's the problem that I think AEW has, is they don't know how to use those big names in a way that grows their business. It just grows their budget, but it doesn't grow their business. Not yet. It hasn't. And if anybody can prove to me, not outliers, but show me what's happened when big names have come in to television ratings, to buy rates. Show me a pattern. I'll be happy to be proven wrong, but I won't be, because I watch that stuff. I look at it. It interests me.
Let's talk about one more piece that is transitioning to a different company. Andrade recently announced that he would be moving on from AEW. Do you project him back in the WWE?
Oh, yeah. It's an amazing talent.
Incredible.
I'm surprised that they let him go in the first place. Amazing talent. I'm glad he's coming back. If indeed that's true, I'm glad he's coming back, because we'll see more of him. How many times has Andrade wrestled in AEW? How long has he been there? 1.5 years, 2 years?
Not enough.
How many times have we seen him wrestle? Half a dozen?
Yeah, maybe.
What the fuck? He's in the witness protection program.
Well, I hope he's back because I'm like you. I want to see him on the TV every time I can get a chance to see him. So we'll see where he lands. And last but not least, since you brought up in the podcasting world, what I saw trending the most was two things in the past week. And one was you and TNA compared to AEW. And the second, I would love to get your thoughts on because you like to tell it like it is. My co-host on Oh You Didn't Know, Mr. Road Dogg, Brian James, he got his trending because he claimed he is a better sports entertainer than MJF. What say you, Mr. Eric Bischoff?
I think it's undeniable. I don't have any issue with it. I think MJF is relatively new to the business. He's only been in the, I hate this fucking word so much, but I'm going to use it, zeitgeist. I just wanted to, it was about, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago in Hollywood, right? Everything was zeitgeist this, zeitgeist that. It's in the zeitgeist. I want to smack muckerfuthers that would say zeitgeist. I just want to backhand them. But a lot of times they were like agents and executives and shit like that. So you can't backhand people in Hollywood.
What's a zeitgeist? I think that's what they found under the pool in that ghost movie, right? Indian burial ground.
Sounds like it.
They found the zeitgeist.
No, it's like the orbit. It's like the universe. It's like our world, our zeitgeist. You know, I freaking hate it. It's just it's another. It's like people that always use the word literally. Like anytime I'm on social media, if a post starts with the word literally, like literally, I can't believe you literally just said, like people use the word literally so often trying to sound smarter than they really are, I guess, or something. I fucking hate it. It's like literally, dude. It's like I literally watched this literal thing and I can't believe he's taking himself so literally, dude. It's literally the weirdest thing I've ever seen. It's like the minute you use the word literally to open up a post or a conversation, I know everything that follows is going to be just a look into the abyss of intentionally uninformed, ignorant people. I just hate it. So don't ever start a conversation. If you're talking to me, and I'm not talking to you, Casio, you don't do this, but if you want to have a conversation with me or we're going to communicate on social media, if you start your post out with the word literally, I am going to digitally bitch slap you in front of the world.
I can't wait for a lot of your fans to be doing that this week.
Oh, bring it. Come on. You bring it. You bring it.
On principle. All right, we have got to get into some questions. That's what we're here for. We want to hear from these listeners of 83 weeks.
They want to get into my zeitgeist.
The zeitgeist of 83 weeks. We're going to start with a awesome name, the Neon Ghost Show. The Neon Ghost sounds pretty cool. Sounds like a bar.
Scary.
I bet they got zeitgeist floating around in the Neon Ghost. But the Neon Ghost says, Eric, sir, when you look back at the legacy you left on pro wrestling as a business, what are you most proud of? And what, if anything, do you want to be remembered for?
Oh, I think I changed the format in terms of the way professional wrestling is presented on American television. And if you go back and look at the product from WWE prior to Nitro, it was very formulaic and it was working, successful, but I changed it all. I'm the one that brought weekly live television to the professional wrestling industry. Back when I was putting all of our top stars on television, the internet, well, it wasn't the internet wrestling community then, it was the dirt sheet community, but it was basically the same thing. It was like, oh my God, the business is going to die. WCW is going to die. They're putting all their top stars on free TV. Why is anybody going to buy a pay-per-view? Everything that I did that was different than the WWE was doing at the time that I launched Nitro has been replicated since by everybody, including the WWE. And I know people will have a hard time accepting that because it's me. And I'm not the most lovable muckerfather out there. I get it. But if you're objective and you look at pre-nitro, post-nitro, and you look at the core elements that have led to the success of the industry as it sits today, let me point out to you, weekly live television. Yep, that was me. Monthly pay-per-views. And these are all things I did first. Yep, that was me. Introducing the Cruiserweight, AKA and bringing in all of the international talent, not just once or twice a year, but on a weekly basis in storylines. Yep, that was me. The introduction of the luchadors on a national scale. Paul Heyman did it before I did in ECW, just nobody was watching it. But I put the luchadors, I made them a staple. I put them in that 9 o'clock crossover hour, which is, other than the open of the show and the main event, the most important portion of the show. I made sure that they were showcased in that spot every single time. I think it wasn't me by myself. It was a lot of people. The tip of the spear would be Rey Mysterio. I think Rey Mysterio has, along with the platform that I gave him originally, has established himself as one of the primary reasons that the luchador product is so accepted, so popular as it is today, right? But the fact that we created that division, that cruiserweight division, and brought the luchadors in along with a lot of the Japanese, and gave guys, you know, that were otherwise smaller guys an opportunity to really shine, aka Chris Jericho, Eddie Guerrero, Chris Benoit, you know, Dean Malenko, a lot of the big names that even moved on over to WWE and became big stars in part, not in 100%, but in part because of the exposure and the success they had on Nitro. I think those are the things I'm most proud of. Changing the format, changing the presentation. I was the first one to target 18 to 49-year-old males, while Vince McMahon and WWE was chasing teens and preteens prior to Nitro. I made the conscious decision to go after an 18 to 49-year-old demo. And now that's the foundation of the television, the professional wrestling television industry today, is the 18 to 49-year-old demo. It's all anybody talks about today. Back when I did was like, ooh, what's he doing that for? Because they were underserved, and that's where the money was. So those are the business things that I know I initiated, created, forced, whatever you want to be. And WWE followed in those footsteps. AEW was trying to replicate WWE, which replicated Nitro when it comes to the way the show was presented compared to the way it was presented prior to Nitro. As far as how I want to be remembered, I'd like to be remembered as an innovator for all the reasons I just explained. You know, those were innovations at the time. Going live every week, that was an innovation. Adding 12 pay-per-views, you know, adding pay-per-views, that was as much out of necessity as it was creativity and strategy, but it was innovative. Everybody thought it would fail, and it didn't. You know, the Cruiserweight division was innovative. So, you know, and I had monster trucks wrestling on top of Cobo Hall. That was pretty stupid. I tried a lot of things, and some of them really, really worked well and are still working today. And I think are the foundation in many of them. It's the foundation of why the business is as successful as it is in terms of television licensing fees, because of capturing that 18 to 49-year-old demo the way we did. But I'd like to just be remembered as being pretty innovative. Not that everything I came up with was a great idea, but a lot of it was. NWO was still one of the top-selling merchandise products in the WWE category 25 freaking years later. Oh, and then there's the LWO. I also created it. So come on, people. Wake the fuck up.
Look, I personally get excited when I get to, whether it's podcasting or just see you in person. I know when I talk to Eric Bischoff that I'm going to learn something, and that's a good thing. Learn something that I never knew. I don't know who I credited it to, but today I learned that you did 52 live weeks a year. I don't know if I had ever thought of it or who to credit it to or not, but that is fascinating to me because I hate to keep going back to my co-host, but he's the guy I picked the brain most about wrestling. Road Dogg, when I talked to him about AEW, I just recently talked about him and what the thoughts were backstage when AEW launched. And he said it wasn't nerves. It was okay, well, we're not the only person on the block. Let's see what happens. And he said they gained some steam, of course, when they first started, and they're doing a little hot. And then you kind of go, okay. But he said it's funny because he brings this up all the time when we talk about it. He says, now let's see you do it 52 weeks out of the year live. Have fun trying to do that because WWE knows how to do it. He thinks it's the hardest separation deal between WWE and AEW is WWE knows how to do it, has been doing it now for years, and it's a hard thing to do live television every single week of the year.
Yeah, I mean, you've not only got your live television that you do in WWE's case, they've got Raw and SmackDown live. Oh, and by the way, what do they do? 1 PLE a month or whatever it is? That's a lot of live television. It is really hard. And again, Kevin Dunn, we talked about him. If you take anybody from the television production business, anybody who's in the industry, television production, that's never been backstage to a WWE event, and you bring them back and you walk them through the production of a WWE live event, you will blow them away. And then when you remind them that they do it 52 weeks a year, they gain a whole new respect for the industry. And Road Dogg's right. It's incredibly hard to do it well. The physical production is very difficult to do well. And in defense of AEW, I don't have a problem with their production. It's not as glitzy. The production values aren't even comparable to WWE, but I kind of prefer them because I like my wrestling a little gritty. It's kind of like a roasted marshmallow. I like them to be a little burnt, right? I don't want it to come off the campfire looking like it just came off of a set of a TV commercial for roasted marshmallows. I want that motherfucker to be charred and brown and get the contrast and flavor. Same thing with production in terms of wrestling. WWE is like watching Disney on ice, right? It's so perfect. It's flawless. I like a flaw here and there. It makes me feel like I'm there. You know, I want to feel like I can almost smell the popcorn or stale beer, whatever the case may be, depending on where you're sitting. I like feeling like I'm there, and sometimes a grittier, less perfect performance or presentation gets me there. But there is no doubt when it comes to creative, therein, in my opinion, lies the biggest distinction between WWE and AEW. And part of that is because live requires a different level of planning and execution and writing. It's just harder. So you combine the physical challenges along with the creative challenges that come with live television, and it's tough. And that's the difference between the two companies. I think the AEW's, they don't even have their training wheels on yet. You know, they shouldn't be allowed outside of the crib when it comes to the creative abilities. And they'll get there eventually. It's a learning curve, but man, WWE is in a different class all by itself.
Yeah, I think with WWE, like for me personally, if I go through a stretch where I'm not watching it weekly and staying on top of it, I know between social media chatter and then watching the product and seeing their packages, their video packages before a match, I know why these two people are in the ring together right now. And if I watch AEW, there's a lot of the times where I go, now why are we watching them? Or we just make them wrestle? I don't know what's happening here. I know they have the whole YouTube series and a lot like that, but I think they kind of rely on that too much. Yeah, they rely on that too much.
Nobody. And Casio, you just hit on the most important word in any conversation when it comes to creative. It's one word, 3 letters. Why? If 2 guys are in a ring, or 2 girls in a ring, or 2 girls and 1 guy, 2 guys, 1 girl, whatever it is, trios, quadruple-Os, whatever it is, you put bodies in a ring that are competing. If you can't clearly define why, then it doesn't matter. It's an exhibition. We're just seeing how athletic everybody is. There's no emotion attached to it. There's no real story. No matter how much you jerk yourself off backstage telling you this is a great story in the ring, there is no story when it comes to the connection to the viewer. There's no journey. There's no nothing. It's just a match. It's an exhibition. You need great story, and part of a great story is being able to answer the question, why are those two wrestling? What are the stakes? Why are they beating the hell out of each other? And if you can't answer that, you're just filling air. You're just filling time.
Let me take a second to tell you why you should check out our friends over at Signos. Look, my mom is diabetic. My grandmother is diabetic. So I know personally why you should stay on top of your glucose levels. And Signos is going to let you track your glucose levels in real time. This is a game changer. The CDC estimates that there are approximately 96 million American adults, that's more than 1 in 3, have pre-diabetes. And of those with pre-diabetes, more than 80% don't know they have it. Why does this matter? Because foods high in carbohydrates raise blood sugar more than other foods. During digestion, the pancreas produces insulin, which then binds the sugar in the blood and takes it into the cells as a source of energy. And if you have pre-diabetes, sugar begins to build up in the bloodstream rather than fuel the cells. And this is when insulin resistance occurs, which is believed to be the #1 cause of pre-diabetes. Eric, you know, you've done your research. You know, Signos is a game changer when it comes to real-time monitoring.
You know what's so fun about a product like this? And again, I absolutely love this product. This is a public service announcement as much as it is anything, because people really need to understand the relationship between their health and the food that they eat, and they don't. We don't. Our government doesn't do an adequate, they do a horrible job of communicating nutrition. But you know, here's a stat for you. Don't quote me on this because I'll get it wrong. I'm just flying by the seat of my pants here. But I read recently that 80% of the medical schools in the United States of America, medical schools, not junior colleges, medical schools in the United States require 20 hours or less of nutritional training for doctors.
Wow.
You imagine that. So, because you go to a doctor, it's all about the pills. It's all about the surgery. You know, doctors are not trained in nutrition. And what's really exciting, here's the good news. The flip side of that coin is because of technology and the amazing pace that technology is developing, you end up with products available to a consumer like Signos, where you can monitor your blood glucose levels. And you talked about why it's important. It is so vitally important. We all have different metabolisms. We all react different ways to different things. You know, when you talk about, carbohydrates, there's different kinds of carbohydrates. You know, people think that, if you eat whole grain bread, that's better than white bread. Well, it's really not. You've been convinced that it is, but if you have, for example, a blood glucose monitor, you can see that having a piece of whole wheat bread, it may not spike your blood sugar levels to the extent that, pineapple might, because of the high levels of sugar in pineapple. Oh, it's a fruit, right? It's healthy, right? No, it's not, especially if you're pre-diabetic or diabetic. But you go back to something that you've been taught is healthy, like whole grain bread. Now, it doesn't spike. You don't have a severe of a spike, but it doesn't drop quickly either, like a lot of sugar does. It stays at a certain level, right? Well, your liver has to work extra hard to pump enough insulin to react to that spike in glucose. It's very complicated, but that's one of the things that I feel so passionate about as a result of the carnivore diet, is because I am eating 0 carbohydrates. 0. And the impact on my body and the way I feel and the way I think is so much different. I feel 100% better than I think I ever have because of my blood glucose. And with a product like Signos, you can, throughout your day, you'll become familiar with what spikes your blood glucose. Because what spikes your blood glucose, Casio, may be different than mine. We have different metabolism. It's not one size fits all, right? So an opportunity for a product like Signos is so vitally important to your health. I encourage you to check it out and do your research and learn about blood glucose and insulin spikes and the real impact it has on your body.
Here's what I challenge you to do. Use Signos consistently for a month. Check out the lifestyle changes that the app recommends and see how it improves your day-to-day life. What'd you learn about your body? You're going to see if that after-dinner beer changes your blood sugar spikes. What does a short walk do for your levels? It's all going to tell you right there at your fingertips when you're using Signos, okay? So here's what we got. Signos removes the guesswork of weight loss and provided you with the tools and knowledge needed to develop healthier habits. It combines glucose data from the CGM or continuous glucose monitor with an AI-driven app to deliver you real-time glucose insights for optimal health and weight management. Right now, Signos has an offer exclusively for 83 Weeks listeners. Go to Signos.com, that's Signos.com, and get 25% off select plans by using code 83Weeks today. That's Signos.com and use the code 83Weeks to get 25% off select plans today. And we thank Signos for not only improving our day-to-day lives, but sponsoring 83 Weeks. All right, let's get back to the questions. Eric, Derek Lewis, the real DT Lou, says, how come Eric was never an executive for a major network?
Well, mostly because I didn't get a job offer, but partly because I never wanted to. That was never a role that I wanted, that I saw myself in. I could have pursued that. I could have, if my goal to be an executive at a television network, if that would have been my goal, I certainly could have used my opportunity in WCW to achieve that. I could have been much more of a corporate type of a person and played that game, that ladder climbing corporate game, which is totally freaking alien to my personality. So I just chose not to. I'm not cut out for that kind of a role. I love to build things. I love to create. I love to collaborate. I don't like the corporate culture. And by corporate culture, I mean, corporately, especially the entertainment business, I was an independent television producer along with my partner, Jason Hervey, for, I don't know, 10, 12 years, and had a tremendous amount of success. I made far more money being an independent television producer than I ever made in the wrestling business, right? And I learned a lot, but I also saw what was happening to the television industry from about 2003 to around 2014 when I finally tapped out and said, I just don't want to do it anymore. The corporate television industry had become so risk adverse. It would be like being an executive at a bank. I understand why other people would want to do it, but I'm not cut out for that. The entertainment business has changed so much that it's not as exciting as it used to be because the process is so risk adverse that it's just not entertaining to me. It's not fun. So I would never want to do it. If I was offered a job to run a network today, I would politely decline and then laugh once I hung up the phone. It's just not me. But I don't have to worry about that because I don't think anybody would ever offer me a job like that. They'd listen to one episode of Strictly Business or 83 Weeks. Go, oh, fuck, I don't want him in my office.
John from Wrestling Fans Insight says, Eric, hope all is well with you. WCW had the right feel when it came to having a cruiserweight division. WWE has tried this twice and has scrapped it. They have all the right talent. Why do you think they have a hard time keeping that concept alive?
Because they didn't create it. It's that simple. They didn't create it.
So
And
they
they're not
don't.
committed to it. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Here's the thing. And here's the other part that makes it a real challenge. It was for me. Is if you're going to establish, TNA completely missed the mark on this. If you're going to create a cruiserweight division, it has to be different than everything else you see. The presentation has to be different than. The talent within that division has to be different than. Everything about it has to be different than everything else you see, or it won't feel unique or special. And the problem that you have, there's actually a couple layers to this. One is in the physical presentation, the high flying, all the stuff off top rope, all the stuff that used to be only in the cruiserweight division or primarily in the cruiserweight division. All of us, you're seeing that cruiserweight division, it starts getting over. Now you got guys that are outside of the cruiserweight division doing some of the same stuff because it's getting over. It creates a situation where the cruiserweight division isn't that different anymore over time because you're not seeing things in a division that you can't see or typically don't see everywhere else. So it gets watered down and diluted as a result of its own success. On a talent management side of the equation, that becomes even more treacherous because your talent in that cruiserweight division starts getting over. Well, they don't want to be just cruiserweights. And that's natural. That's healthy. That's normal. You're a performer. You don't want to be locked into a level or a position. You don't want to feel like you're in the middle of the show. You want to be in the main event, man. That's what you grew up wanting to be and dreaming about. So no matter how successful someone becomes in that cruiserweight division, Chris Jericho, they want to move on up. That's why Chris left, because he felt like he wasn't going to go. And I'm not putting words in Chris's mouth, but that's my impression, that he wanted to be wrestling in the main event, and he didn't see that opportunity in WCW. Part of that was because I didn't want to dilute the cruiserweight division. That was part of it. There was other parts of it, but that was part of it. So those challenges make building, sustaining a cruiserweight division a little harder than it would seem on the surface.
Great question. Great answer. That was good insight for me. John Cooney said, what's the best way to become successful in professional wrestling outside of the ring?
Different for everybody, man. It depends what your skill sets are, your passions are, your interests are. I don't think there's a single answer other than be different than, go back. And I know I keep beating on this, and some people get it, some people don't, but the Sarsa equation, that formula that I use to differentiate myself from WWE, the story, anticipation, reality, surprise, and action were all born. That idea, that acronym Sarsa, was born out of the fact that I've got to be different than the WWE. That same thing is true in life. If you are applying, Casio, you're a stand-up comic. You have to be different than other you have to have your own style.
Yeah.
When people see Casio on the billboard, they know he's going to be doing stand-up comedy. They have an idea that they're getting a different kind of comedy out of Casio than they are out of whoever else they may have seen the week before. You have to strive to create your own brand, to be different than, to create anticipation for your product. You have to be organic and authentic. That's the reality part of the Sarsa formula. You have to be able to have the ability to surprise your boss, your wife, your coworkers. When I say surprise them, by presenting something that's different than they expected from you, right? And action. So the Sarsa formula applies to just about any job that you can think of. But if you're in the wrestling business and you think about that Sarsa formula and you look back at the things that have been successful and go, wow, there was story there. There was anticipation. It felt real. It felt believable. It felt authentic. There was reality there. Oh, I didn't see that coming. There's the surprise. And the action was great. There's the action. Speaks for itself. And figure out a way to apply that formula to whatever it is you want to do outside of the wrestling ring or outside of the wrestling business. I think you'll find that it's pretty applicable and it works. You know, Conrad Thompson, who I normally do this show with, who, you know, you've been best friends with for just about forever, if not forever. You know, Conrad is an amazing, people who don't work with Conrad probably don't have an appreciation for how brilliant he really is, but he's done it by being different than. Yeah. How many mortgage people do you know that would have launched a podcast network for the sole purpose of promoting their mortgage business? If he would have pitched that to somebody else, you know, another traditional mortgage company, they would have gone, I don't think so. The wrestling fans, you know, live in houses, they live in tents on the street. I mean, come on. Conrad saw that opportunity. He was different than. And he's become amazingly successful as a result of it. That's just one example. So how to be successful? Be different. Think about ways that you can be so unique to any opportunity that comes your way or that you're trying to create. And think about that Sarsa formula, man. Story, anticipation, reality, surprise, and action. Apply it to whatever it is you want to try to achieve. And you'll find, I think, it's pretty applicable. And it'll at least give you a good roadmap. Good way to start.
Well, Eric, we are doing this in front of a live studio audience this morning. I want to thank everybody for joining us and watching and commenting. And I wanted to make sure I got one of these questions in, get some of them at least. And so
we got a bunch of people here, man. Who do we have?
Man.
Aaron Sheen, Easy Zeismer, or Zeismer, whatever. I'm sorry, man. I can't pronounce that. Mike Hoopster, what's up?
Aaron Manzo is in the house. Coach Keith, I see you, buddy, getting up early with us. We greatly appreciate that. So let's get a couple of these first. Let's go to our buddy Mike Hoop. He says, Eric, Sting's last match. Do you think they should do a tag match or singles? And who should be the opponents, if so, either way?
I'll give you two answers. If Sting, we don't know, you know, what kind of shape is Sting in? You know, what does Sting want to do? You know, he's at an age in his life where he wants to, I would think, I don't know, I'm not trying to pretend I know Sting better than I do, but I would imagine he wants to go out and have a great match to the best of his ability, to maximize his abilities in the ring, minimize any exposure he has because of the condition he's in. Is he going to go out there and do a 60-minute Iron Man match? Probably not. You know, is he going to be bouncing around like a couple 160-pound 25-year-olds? Probably not. But he could still go out there and have a great match that's emotional, that tells a great story, and that most importantly ends on a very, very positive note for Sting, and the fans. And I think that's possible with a lot of different people in WWE. There's a lot of great talent in AEW. I'd like to see a singles because that's the focus. When you have someone like Sting, who's been around so long, has achieved so much, is universally loved, you know, you're not going to find anybody that's going to have a bad thing to say about Steve Morton or the character Sting. When you got somebody like that, you want to live vicariously through them, meaning you've been a Sting fan all of your life, for the majority of your life, or whatever it is. You're a big Sting fan. You want to almost experience what he's feeling to the best of your abilities by watching. And you want him at the end of that match to be able to look out. You want to feel like you could put yourself in his shoes. So when that match is over and you get that final 3 count, you want to subconsciously see him stand up and soak it all in and love every moment of it. And it to be as emotional for Steve as it is for the fans, or actually way more. That's what you want to see. That's easier to achieve in a singles match than it is in a tag. There's a lot going on in tag. Everything's moving, right? Your focus goes from here to here to here to here to here. It's faster paced, usually less emotion as a result of the pace and the fact that your attention is spread out. So I would love to see it be a singles match. I'd love to be it with someone who could give in an ideal world, and it's not an ideal world. Trust me, I know that. But in an ideal world, I would love for it to be Ric Flair. And I know I'm going to get blistered for Rick, he's too old. Blah, blah, blah. Bullshit. Now, Rick may not be interested in going out there and physically being in that position because, again, Rick's, he was almost dead a couple of years ago. So, and he's 74 freaking years old. So it's kind of understandable that he's not going to want to go out there in his underwear and bounce around. I get it. But if he could go out there, it would be the coolest thing in the world to see Flair and Sting. Knowing that that's not really possible, whoever it is, I would want it to be meaningful from a storyline point of view, and I would want that person to want nothing more in his life than to make Sting look like $1 million because he deserves that.
That is correct. The first thing I thought of when they announced it is, man, I just hope it goes well for him. I mean, I know for us too, but that's your last match. You want to go out on going, man, that was a fun way to go out. I told the story like we wanted to go out. I get more anxious for them than I do me wanting to actually enjoy the last match. I just get that secondhand anxiety of, I hope it goes like they want it to go. That's all that matters really, is they're happy with their exit. And that's a tough thing to do sometimes.
It is, but I have a lot of confidence. I know Steve well enough to know that he's preparing. And he knows his body. He's been training his whole life, to different degrees. He knows, and he's been doing this a long time. I'm pretty confident he's going to be ready and he's going to be able to put on a great performance. I just hope it's with somebody that can make him look better than he already is, which should be the goal. Anytime you step into the ring, your goal should be to make your opponent look better than they did when the bell rang, right? That's the goal, should be the goal. But I hope there's a decent story behind it, too. It's got to matter.
Beyond the script with another question, he says, we've touched on a little bit of this, but to this day, how great does it feel to be the only person to ever beat Vince McMahon in the ratings? Do you think that will ever be duplicated again? Or what do you think a promotion has to do in order to achieve such heights against WWE?
Yeah, well, I don't think anybody will ever outperform Vince McMahon because Vince McMahon is pretty much out of the business. It was great going head-to-head with Vince. I love the fact that I was such an underdog. Nobody in their right mind thought that I would ever be able to compete, or WCW, I should say, Nitro was ever going to be able to compete with Raw. Everybody, all the dirt sheet writers and all the quote-unquote experts who study the business, I get a big kick out of that one. All of a sudden, these dirt sheet assholes are like quasi-intellectuals. It's just a fucking hoot. But everybody predicted it. There's no way. And within a very short period of time, well, fuck, we were competitive with WWE from day one. When Nitro launched, we were competitive. Forget about the first night because they weren't even on the air. There was a dog show going on. But even after that week of, we were 1 week we'd win, next week they'd win. We'd win 2, they'd win 3, we'd win 1, they'd win 1. We were competitive all the way up until 1996, and then we just stomped a mud hole in them. Road Dogg, I said that for you. We stomped a mud hole in your ass. until you mucker brothers drove up in Norfolk in a goddamn Jeep. Kind of blew everything for me, asshole.
Chance Richardson wants to know, what is the most significant factor you look for when assessing a business opportunity?
Does it look like fun? I'm a firm believer that my formula for success has to be, there is no room for error or margin. It has to be fun. It has to require a lot of work. Because I firmly believe that if you work your ass off, but you're having fun doing it, success is inevitable. You can't even help it. It will be there if you work hard and if you have fun. If you have fun, but you're really only half-assing it, you're done. It ain't going to work. If you work your ass off, but you're miserable, find a new gig. It's not going to work. But if I see an opportunity that sounds like fun, and if I think about it, I can imagine doing it, and what I imagine feels good to me and feels, and when I say fun, I'm not talking about running around the office laughing your ass off like a blithering fucking idiot, but the challenge, if you enjoy the challenge, if you enjoy the work, if you enjoy the process, if you enjoy collaborating with people and you've got good people around you, that to me is fun. That's my idea of going to the beach, to be honest. But you got to put in the work too. So that's it. If an opportunity comes my way, and they do, some things I jump into, some things I don't. But my first pass is, does it sound fun? And is there enough for me to contribute that I can work hard at it? Like, I don't want to be a passive player in anything. I mean, I am. I should take that back. I have somewhat passive roles in different business opportunities that are going on today that I make money off of. And I'm not 100% active in them. But I chose to be involved in those opportunities because they were passive. By that, I mean, it allows me to be available to jump headfirst into something else if that something else comes along and it looks like fun and I can work at it. So I don't know, fun and work, man. Those are the two formula. If I see opportunities for both, I'm in. If it's one or the other, probably not interested.
Jason Barker, the IWC Tribal Chief, wants to know, who do you think should take Kevin Dunn's place?
Ooh, I haven't been in WWE backstage for 5 years now, so I couldn't tell you. I don't have a name. Mike Mansouri, who's now in AEW, I think was the heir apparent 5 years ago. I think the world of Mike Mansouri, amazing, and a fun guy to be with too. I mean, he's amazingly talented, but he's also a really fun person to work with. Does the best JR impersonation I've ever heard. I mean, he's got it down. I used to fly with him in the back of Vince's plane with Bruce whenever we'd be back there with Michael Hayes or whoever, and Bruce and myself, and Shane McMahon would pop in there every once in a while. We'd be drinking wine on the way home, and then Mike Mansouri would break into his JR routine. Oh my God. It was the funniest. It made the flight a hoot.
Tone wants to know, Eric, do you think it would be beneficial for wrestling as a whole if someone were to start a film school type of program for writers and production people? I know WWE does this a bit with NXT, but it seems more geared towards the in-ring work and performers.
I think they do, already. Wrestling production at its core is so much different. I mean, there's so many similarities. Audio's audio, lighting's lighting. Okay. Pyro's pyro. The real challenge in production for me was cameramen and directors, because wrestling, you have to anticipate where things are going and anticipate what's going to happen. We're talking split seconds, fractions of seconds, nano fucking seconds, whatever. But you've got to be ahead of the action in order to capture it. Whereas in traditional sports, you're following the action. You're not anticipating it. I mean, you are to a degree, but not to the extent that you are in wrestling. In wrestling, you are really, you need to stay a beat ahead of the action that's in the ring in order to do a great job covering it. That's an easy concept to understand intellectually. It's a very difficult skill to learn. It takes time and experience. There's no other way to do it other than experience. So I think from a cameraman's point of view, absolutely, wrestling is unique from anything else that they're going to cover. Absolutely different than anything else they're going to cover as a camera person. So I think that could be helpful. And maybe they're already doing it, down in NXT. I don't know. And also directors. That's the same thing. I mean, maybe even more so, because your director and your cameraman both have to be on the same page a nanosecond or two ahead of the action. You don't want to get too far ahead of it. You just want to be, like I said, nanoseconds ahead of where things are going as opposed to following them.
Mitch Krebsbach said, if Tony Khan had not made the mistakes like Eric Bischoff comment, do you think you'd be less critical of AEW or Tony?
Actually, that comment when he said, and he didn't say Eric Bischoff, Tony Khan said, we're not going to make the same mistakes WCW made. That offended me a bit, but not that much. Not a big deal. It's like, why would he say that? What pissed me off and largely is responsible for me losing respect for Tony, and that's probably why I started being honest about my critiques. I probably would have kept my mouth shut until I lost respect for him. And then at that point, I've got no reason to keep my mouth shut. It's just the way my mind works. It's who I am. Mucker father, live with it. Or don't. Don't care one way or the other, be honest. But when Tony said, you know, if Ted Turner knew 1% of what I know about professional wrestling, maybe WCW would still be around. That comment was so disrespectful, number one, fucking stupid, number two, because Tony doesn't have any idea what happened with WCW inside of Turner. The only thing Tony Khan knows is what he learned from reading dirt sheets. That's all Tony Khan knows about WCW's mistakes. And for him to come out and take a shot at Ted Turner, why his punk ass has got a show on Turner Broadcasting, was so disrespectful to Ted that I lost all respect for him. And once I lose respect for somebody, I'm not as inhibited about my opinion. There are times when I see people that I have a lot of respect for do something, say something. I just shut my mouth. I don't have anything positive to contribute, so I just don't say anything. But if it's somebody that I have zero respect for, that's a different story. So I think it was really Tony's comment about Ted and how much Tony knew about professional wrestling, which at this point obviously did not age very well. I mean, Tony, you're running a clown car. I know the people around you that get their checks every week aren't going to tell you that because they want to keep getting those checks. But it's a clown car. And that's what put me over the edge.
If I could quote the great philosophers, Salt and Pepper, I would say, let's talk about sex, baby. Let's talk about you and me. Let's talk about all the good things and the bad things that may be. Let's talk about sex.
Where is this going, Casio?
BlueChew.com, baby. They're here
I knew it.
to take care of us, my friend. The process is simple. Sign up at BlueChew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. Here's the fun part. Look, some of us have had the same doctor for years, maybe since you've been growing up. If you're in a small town in Alabama like myself or wherever you may be, you know your doctor for decades. Then you know your pharmacist in the middle of the grocery store, and you don't want to be going in there, possibly, with your ED stuff. So, Blue Chew makes that easy. No visits to the doctor's office, no awkward conversations, no waiting in line at the pharmacy. It's all done online. And, of course, they're made right here in the USA, and prepared and shipped direct to your door in a discreet package. Eric, we talk about Blue Chew all the time. You know why? Because it works and people are still using Blue Chew.
I still use it. Yesterday morning was classic. It was awesome. Awesome. You know, been traveling, Christmas holidays, busy at work, all the stuff that goes along with the holiday season. We finally get home. It's the first weekend we've been home together, and I have my plans. I went to bed the night before with an agenda. I knew what I wanted to do when I first woke up in the morning, and I also knew that if this was my window of opportunity, I wanted to be prepared. I wanted to prepare so that I could maximize the opportunity and have the utmost in performance. So what did I do? I brought my little Blue Chew packet to bed with me. So it was the first thing I did when I woke up in the morning. I opened up one eye, I opened up the other eye. It was still dark outside. I felt around on the nightstand table. I said, "Well, that's my water. I don't need that." Oh, there it is. There's my little pack of pleasure in the Blue Chew. I pulled it out. I popped the Blue Chew. I took a hit of water, went in, took a shower, came back, and ready to have a monumental weekend.
Blue Chew wants to help you have better sex just like they did Mr. Eric Bischoff. So discover your options at BlueChew.com. Chew it and do it, baby. And we've got a special deal for our listeners. Try Blue Chew free when you use the promo code 83weeks at checkout. Just pay $5 shipping. That's BlueChew.com, promo code 83weeks to receive your first month free. Visit BlueChew.com for more details and important safety information. And we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring 83 Weeks. All right, let's get into some fan questions. We are in front of a live studio audience, and I'm going to go with Aaron Sheen. Eric, it's 4 a.m. wherever he is interacting with us from. Aaron, thank you for that. We appreciate it. I don't know if you haven't went to bed or you got up early specifically for this recording, but
Aaron must be in Hawaii or something, man, because it's 9:30 here at Mountain Time. It's 8:30 Pacific, so.
Woo! Aaron wants to know, during the height of WCW, is there one show you would recommend someone to check out that sums up how hot it was back then, either a Nitro or a pay-per-view?
Oh, I don't think that's a great question. I'd have to think about it a little bit more than we have time for here this morning. But, you know, I'd say anything between 96 and 97 just felt otherworldly at that time. You know, so the industry, the interest, it had been a long time since the wrestling was that hot. And I'd say anything from about late 96, mid 97. Just see, and when you watch the crowd, but pay as much attention to the crowd as you are to what's going on in the ring. Just watching their reactions and what they're reacting to and how they're reacting. That's when I think I felt the most energy. You know, you hear people talking about the vibe, you know, and it's used in kind of different ways throughout different cultures and times. But everything is a vibration, sound, light, everything is a vibration. And the idea of energy, you know, people's excitement, enthusiasm, anger, whatever it is, whatever you're manipulating or trying to get the crowd to do, when you achieve that, there is a vibration of energy that's different than just about anything else you've experienced. It's right on the verge of adrenaline. It's the best way I can say it. And the vibe back then, because of the energy and the excitement and the passion or whatever, was so consistently high throughout that period of time, it makes it hard for me to pick just one. But definitely during that period, you could just feel it. When you were talent and you step into that ring and you've got 8 or 10,000 people there, and they're really into what you know this, Casio. You know what I'm talking about when it comes to the vibe. You know when your audience is feeling your show.
Yeah.
And maybe when they're not.
Instantly.
And when you capture that vibe, once you've tasted it, you can't get that taste out of your mouth. And I would say that's late 96 throughout 97. Pick any show you want, because all of them felt that way.
Former Hugh Morris, Bill DeMott with a question for you, Mr. Eric Bischoff. Knowing what you know now, would you ever consider doing again, running a wrestling company?
So is this the real Bill DeMott, or is
This
this
is. I went and verified. It is the real Bill DeMott.
Hey, Bill. Good to kind of see you, or at least interact. Wow, knowing what I know now, would I do it again? If I was 40, I would. If I was 50, I might. At 68, I wouldn't go near it. And only because I know how much of my life it would take. It's your life. It's not even a job. It becomes your life. And I'm finally at a point in my life where I've never been happier, ever been happier. I'm healthy, probably haven't been healthier in 30 years. I've got a grandson and an amazing relationship with my son and my daughter and my daughter-in-law. And my goal right now is to spend as much time with them and contribute as much as I can to them. And running a wrestling company would not fit into that plan at all. Not that I sometimes don't think about it, but I also am realistic in terms of where I want to be at this point in my life. And I wouldn't go near it. But let me say, Bill, I'm grateful for a lot of things. I mean, really, I am. I've been blessed throughout my whole life. Sometimes didn't even know how blessed I was, but I was. I am so grateful for the opportunity that I had, but there's certain things, no matter how grateful I am or how much I love doing it at the time, I just wouldn't have a place in my life right now because things are different. I hope that answered the question. Bill, I hope you're healthy, brother. I hope things are going good for you.
I got to see him in Waterloo going into the Hall of Fame last year. So that was super cool. Good to hear from Bill DeMott. Poddamn Rick Spade is the guy's name. He wants to know, hypothetically, if Eric had purchased WCW, would you have been stuck with the limited roster? Would he have everyone because they were still on Turner TV? Or would your consortium of business partners have to buy out the contracts to get the big name stars?
All of the above. You know, everybody that was on the roster in WCW, that was still on the roster at the point in time when we were going to acquire WCW from Turner Broadcasting. Some of those people had 2 months left under contract. Some of those people had 5 months left under contract. Some of them had 2 years left under contract. So it all depends where each individual was. We weren't buying necessarily the assets of WCW. We were essentially buying the brand and the goodwill and the time on television. That's at the core, and it wasn't structured that way in the deal, but that's essentially what it was about. Some of the talent would have come along with us. Some of them would have been with us for a short period of time. Some of them would have been let go. It all depends on who they were, where they were in their contract lifespan, and whether or not they had a place in what we saw as the future WCW. So there was no one answer. There would have been all of the above.
Big time Tony P said, if Tony Khan asked you to turn AEW around and make it a successful company that could compete with WWE, what would you do first?
Take him off television.
I thought you were going to say turn him down.
Either that or turn him heel. He'd be a great obnoxious heel, wouldn't he?
Yes.
But he is not a baby face. The guy should not be anywhere near a red light on anything that looks like it might be a camera. You know, you should not. Not in your quasi cosplay press conferences or media scrums or whatever you're trying to present. Just nothing. Let somebody else be the face of your company. You know, when AEW first started, what I was excited about is it appeared for a couple months like Chris Jericho was going to be kind of the face of the company because we were hearing a lot from Chris about AEW and and I thought, okay, that kind of makes sense. And then all of a sudden I'm seeing Tony, and I'm going, ooh, somebody must love him enough to tell him that this is not a good idea. I mean, somebody got to have a girlfriend or parent or brother, sister, anybody. Say, hey, Tony, I don't know. TV, let somebody else be the face of the company. That'd be number one. Number two is I would hire somebody that really understood professional wrestling, that was a fan like Tony that really loved the product, but loved it because of its story potential. Somebody that knew wrestling, but also really understood the story. And there's actually a guy like that out there. He's a Harvard graduate. He's a really smart guy. He's won awards for writing a book about Shakespeare's called Shakespeare's Proleptic Characters. Pull that right out of my ass, didn't I? But he could tell you, you could call him up right now. I've had him on the show. I'm not going to mention his name because I don't want him to get a bunch of heat. But I've had him on the show, and we've broken down some of the best stories in WWE. You know, and he can make a comparison and draw an analogy to classic stories from Greek literature or Shakespeare and show you how that storytelling structure applied to certain stories within professional wrestling. In some cases, were almost mirror images in terms of story structure. So you've got to have somebody that understands. You can't just bring in a Hollywood writer. Okay, been there, done that. Doesn't work. But if you can find somebody that really understands story structure and what makes a great story, but also understand the wrestling audience, because the televised wrestling audience is different than a sitcom audience, or different than an action show audience, or different than a dramatic series audience. Okay, there are similarities, there are crossover, always is. Entertainment's entertainment. But the wrestling audience is a little bit unique. So you have to have a sense of the wrestling audience, the mainstream audience, not the hardcore internet wrestling geeks that populate the AEW audience for the most part. But the 2.5 million other people that love wrestling, they just don't care for the internet wrestling style of storytelling or lack thereof. So find somebody that really understands it, both sides of the culture, storytelling culture and wrestling culture, and build a team around that person and fix creative, because creative is a mess currently in AEW. I don't care what anybody says. You can kid yourself all you want. If I was wrong, the ratings would be growing like they are in WWE. And I'm not wrong. As painful as it may be to you AEW trolls out there who live for an opportunity to bury me on social media. By the way, the funny thing is every time I say something like this, my social media lights up a couple hours later and I'm getting buried. And I go, I wonder who these people are. And I click on him. He's got like 8 followers, 2 followers. You know, these are people that are just living in little tiny bubbles. And they're passionate about what they're passionate about, but it doesn't take away from the fact that I'm absolutely right. Creative needs to get fixed. And that's the first thing that I would focus on.
Flair fan at Steeler fan 8771 said, from the outset, why didn't you have the same regard, respect for Flair that you seemingly had for Hogan, Savage, Piper, Nash, Hall, and others?
That's a good question. It's not that I had any different level of respect, but business was different with those individuals. Ric Flair was in WCW before I got there as an announcer. Literally 48 hours after I got there, my first day of work in 1991, Flair left WCW. And he came back after I was made executive producer, despite the fact that he claims that he's the one that got me the job. I already had the job before he came back. Whatever. Minor point. I forget shit, dude. Doesn't matter. So when Flair came, and I didn't know of Ric Flair. I know this sounds like a disrespectful things to say, but you have to remember, I was living in Minneapolis before I got hired to come to work for Turner Broadcasting. I didn't get TBS on my cable system. I didn't watch it. So I didn't know about NWA. I didn't know about TBS. I didn't know about WCW on TBS. I knew nothing about it or anybody in it. I didn't watch Florida Championship Wrestling. I didn't watch World Class Wrestling. I didn't watch Mid-South Wrestling because it wasn't available to me. The only thing that I knew was AWA and Vern Gagne and the people that came in and out of that tour, one of which, by the way, was Hulk Hogan. And I know Ric Flair started in AWA, and I think he was there in 1973. I think he trained with Brad Riggins. May have trained with Brad Riggins, but he trained in the farm, in the barn, I guess, Vern and his team. But Rick left the territory very, very soon afterwards and was in NWA and Florida, wherever he was in the South that I wasn't aware of. So I didn't know of Rick the way I knew of Hulk and Randy and others. So the perception probably was that I had less respect for Rick, but that is not true. Rick and I got along great for a long time. 94, we were thick as thieves. I gave him the job as head of creative. My wife and his former wife and his kids and my kids all hung out at the beach or at the pool at the yacht club in Disney World whenever we were down there producing television. Rick invited my family down to St. Martin, and we produced a wrestling event down there, that Rick wanted to do because he had a Gold's Gym down in St. Martin. So I worked with Rick to make that happen, and we hung out. We had a blast. So my relationship with Rick wasn't always tenuous, and there were a lot of times when it was great. It wasn't until later when the stakes got higher, egos got more sensitive, my decisions became more controversial. My personality probably changed. I went from being a fairly happy-go-lucky, easy to get along with. I wasn't under a lot of pressure. I didn't have to make choices that pissed people off or hurt people's feelings or disappointed them or crushed their egos. I wasn't in that position. But once I was in that position and the stakes became higher and the egos became more sensitive, my reaction to certain things with Rick, I do regret. I could have been more conscious of, I don't want to make Rick sound like a sensitive guy, although he is. He wears his emotions on his sleeve. We all know that. I could have been more careful about the way I handled certain situations and treated Rick with more respect than I did. But it didn't start out that way. It ended up that way. And part of that was my fault. Part of that was Rick's fault. It just happened. When I say fault, part of it was my role in the company at that time, and part of it was because of Rick's role in the company at that time. And I'm not saying I didn't do things that were disrespectful. I'm saying the opposite. I did, and I wish I wouldn't have. But it's not that it started out that way. So that's the best way I can answer that.
Charlie Thrower has a fun one. He said, yourself, Conrad, and the rest of Conrad's co-hosts are all going on a 5-hour road trip. Who's driving? Who's co-pilot? Who's complaining? Who's always talking? Who's always eating? And who always wants to stop?
Okay, I can tell you who's not driving. That would be Dave Silva. I've heard all the stories. I've seen the damaged rims. So Silva's out of the equation. So who would be? I put Evan Polisher. Who's on our team?
Well, I don't know if he wants to know, like, co-host as in, like, Paulie B and me or Albert, or if he's wanting to know JR and Tony and
okay, I'd let Tony drive. I'd let Tony drive. Tony Schiavone would drive because he's a teetotaling son of a bitch. It'd be like driving with your grandmother. You'd feel really good about it.
Who's co-pilot? You?
Co-pilot? Yeah. I mean, I actually used to be a pilot, and I had my instrument rating. I was licensed to fly high performance complex aircraft, which is a different type of rating. And I was instrument rated. So I think I'd be a good co-pilot. And I have an amazing sense of direction. Really, I do.
All right. Who's complaining?
What's the next one?
Who's complaining?
Oh, who bitches the most? Who whines the most? JR.
That's what I thought you were going to say.
But here's the deal. Like when JR starts whining about shit, it's funny. Like, it's hilarious. You don't even mind it. In fact, you encourage it. Hey, Jim, what do you think about all this rain?
Let it go.
Because you want to hear him go nuts. Okay, what's the next category?
Well, we got who's always talking, who's eating, who always wants to stop.
Who's always talking? That would probably also be me because I talk like a mucker father. I just know I do.
You got Conrad too. He's gonna talk. We still got Bruce.
Yeah, but
we still got
I'd give that one to Conrad because he's funny too. And here's the deal: once Jim Ross starts complaining, Conrad will start feeding into that shit.
Yeah,
because we all know it's entertaining as hell.
Yeah, he likes to guide the conversation. Conrad does,
and stir it up. Stir. That's how I first met Conrad. The first time I came to his house, you were there, I think.
Yeah.
Bruce Prichard says, "Hey, I got this guy named Conrad Thompson. He's getting all kinds of money. He loves having people like you come in and just come into his house, drink a bunch of beer, and tell wrestling stories." But I'm not doing that. I don't like being around people I don't know because I am kind of an introvert, really. So I'm not going to do that. He goes, "No, you really love it, man. You pay you money, feed you great. You have a great time. I'll be there." And I went, "All right, if you're going to be there, I'll go." So I went. I thought it'd be fun. And it was fun. So I got about 6 or 8 beers in me. Conrad was just waiting. He's going, "I'm going to get this punk. And then I'm going to unload my Conrad shit on him." And he did. And I left there. I wasn't angry at Conrad. I was angry at myself. I wanted to beat my own ass for doing it. And then I got stuck in the airport. My flight canceled on top of it. So all I could do is sit at the hotel bar and drink my misery away. I was so pissed off and hungover the next day, I could barely get on a plane.
We've got who's always eating and who always wants to stop. You've got people left over like Kurt Angle, Arn, Bruce Prichard, Jeff Jarrett.
Jeff Jarrett would always be eating. That son of a bitch eats more than 3 of us combined.
He's a monster. He's an absolute monster.
The only person I've seen eat as much, I won't even say more, but as much as Jeff Jarrett is my son Garrett.
Can Garrett crush it?
Oh my God. I took him out for sushi. I took everybody out for sushi one night. We were down there for Christmas, and I was going to have to call Conrad and remortgage my house. Ridiculous.
You know it's something when me, Conrad, and Dave Silva, for the first time, eat a meal with Jeff Jarrett. We go to lunch at a restaurant. We're all done, and Jeff Jarrett is like, "Are you going to finish that?" and all 3 of our fat asses are going, "My man can eat, son." All the bread, all the appetizer. You know how some people are scared to get the last appetizer? There's only 1 cheese stick left. Nobody wants to grab it. Jeff's like, "Y'all not going to eat it?" Because I'm eating it. I'm going to make sure. Who wants to stop all the time? Bruce?
He probably has the smallest bladder. So, yeah. Yeah.
Small bladder Prichard. We all.
Yeah. He's got like a tiny little baby poodle bladder. You know, this would be like every 20 minutes. "Mommy, I gotta go to the bathroom."
All right, let's get another one. That was a good one. The official account of Jeetness. The Jeetness says, "How does Eric anticipate AI affecting the wrestling industry? In my opinion, we are very close to AI being able to produce very good wrestling matches that can be watched on TV. Obviously, they cannot be duplicated live, but wouldn't that be a very interesting concept?"
You know, what I'm really interested in is, and I played around with it just for the fun of it, is AI as it relates to creative. I mean, you could, I've done this. I've just created storylines out of nowhere just to see how well AI works and learn how to, use it and interface with it. And I think there's a lot of potential there from a creative perspective on at least building a framework for a great story arc. I think that can have an impact as people become more familiar with AI, as AI develops. And I mean, every single day, there's more and more information and capabilities available to you using AI. So I think when that time comes, which probably isn't that far away, you're going to find writers in wrestling as well as Hollywood. It's one of the reasons for the writer's strike, right? They all saw this freight train coming.
Yeah.
They know what's going to happen, you know, and I believe it will happen because again, I just playing around with it. I went, whoa, this is actually kind of possible that you could create characters and create story arcs with the requisite plot points along the way to make it really a storyline and a story arc as opposed to just a wrestling angle, which is typically what we hear about today. With the exception, you know, like the Bloodline and some of the other stories are really well-disciplined, well-structured storylines, but the rest of them are just excuses for a match that we call storylines. But with AI, you can take somebody that doesn't have that formal storytelling structure and understanding of structure and have them plug in the requisite elements and boom, it spits it back to you in what looks like a pretty interesting story. And then you go back and tweak it and fuck with it to make it really wrestling. But yeah, that's what I see. As far as using AI to create the presentation beyond the creative underpinnings of it, I don't see that, but that's probably because I don't know enough about it. Maybe it could happen. Who knows?
I am Mongo 1984 says, please tell the story of how and why the alleged favored nations clause was included in certain WCW contracts. And also, how did the NWO trademark wind up where it did before WCW sold?
Let me answer the last one first. The NWO trademark ended up with WWE because WWE bought all the assets of which a trademark is considered of WCW. It's like when you buy somebody's house, the plumbing comes with it, right? So that's how the NWO trademark ended up there. They bought the company and the assets contained therein. Favored nations came along as we were increasing talent, payroll substantially, bringing in bigger names, had to be able to create a contract model that would allow us to bring in talent X. I'm not going to name names. Let's say you got talent X is at the top. Talent X is making more money than anybody else. Brock Lesnar, okay, at some point, at one point. So Brock Lesnar's up here, but you still want to negotiate with people who are maybe not in Brock Lesnar's category or Steve Austin's category or The Rock's category, right? Guys who are at the top of their game. You still want to be able to bring in or renegotiate and renew people who they're not quite at that level, but they're right here. They want to know that if they sign an agreement and business continues to grow, that you're not going to bring in somebody else who wasn't there to help grow the business and pay them more. It's not unusual, especially in talent, to have favored nations agreements. Because a favored nation agreement is basically acknowledging the contribution a talent made or is likely to make and assuring them to some degree that you're not going to bring in somebody else who didn't have as much of a contribution and pay them more money. So if you want to pay that individual more money, those people who were there before, who contributed, who helped create the opportunity to pay someone more money, they get elevated too. So it's not unusual. It's not a great situation to be in, but it's also a situation that's not a bad situation to be in because you're there as a result of your success. That makes sense.
Yep. Footage wants to know, I've noticed at your Hall of Fame introduction that no one introduced you. Who would you have had introduce you before your introduction?
Bill Shaw. Bill Shaw is the one that gave me the opportunity. If it wasn't for, well, I've been given a lot of opportunity. I've been blessed with a lot of opportunities, you know, going back to a guy who's no longer with us by the name of Mike Shields, who was really the one who hired me to come to work for Vern. Certainly Vern for giving me the opportunity, agreeing to the opportunity, and then teaching me and in his own way, mentoring. Bill Shaw was the one that changed my life, really, by giving me the opportunity to become the executive producer and then move on from there. So I would have, and plus Bill's fun. He's just a good guy. So I would have loved to give that tip of the hat to Bill.
All right. Super Ty wants to know, Eric, did you ever feel mistreated or misused in any way during your first run in WWE because you were previously labeled as the WCW guy that tried to put them out of business?
Interestingly enough, I felt exactly the opposite.
Really?
I felt more at home in WWE and more welcomed in WWE when I went there the first time than I did when we were on top of our game at WCW. By that, I mean, with regard to Turner Broadcasting, we were the redheaded stepchildren. Even in success, it was a long time before we were acknowledged and embraced. Whereas in WWE, from the minute I got there, I'm not going to suggest there weren't people there that were irritated that I was or resented the fact that I was. I'm sure there was. There were still people there with hard feelings from that time. But it wasn't Vince. It wasn't Linda. It wasn't Stephanie. It wasn't Shane. It wasn't Bruce Pritchard. It wasn't Jerry Briscoe. Those people all welcomed me with open arms. And to this day, Jerry Briscoe and Bruce Pritchard are two of my best friends. And I say that, I don't have a lot of friends. I have a lot of acquaintances. And I don't talk to Bruce or Jerry, throughout the year. We have 3 or 4 conversations. That's a lot. But that's because I don't talk to my brother or sister on the phone either. Love them dearly. We probably have a total of 7 minutes of conversation combined throughout the year. But I'll go hang out with my brother and sister for Thanksgiving 1,000 miles, drive home 1,000 miles. They come out to visit me during the summers. We're very close. I love them very much. I'm just not a phone person. Kevin Nash is also a great friend of mine. He's not part of this question. But a couple of my best friends are as a result of me going to WWE. So I felt very, very much at home. I never felt the resentment. I know that it exists, but I never felt it.
Leads into our next question. Lady H wants to know, when times were difficult in TNA and WCW, what kept you going?
TNA never got me down. It's just frustrating. I mean, when I got home from TNA, I was in a much better mood than I was when I left. I didn't. There were parts of TNA that I did enjoy. I enjoyed working with my son. I enjoyed some of the creative process during certain periods of time within TNA. But overall, it was a very frustrating experience. I didn't want to go there in the first place. I went there really to help Hulk Hogan. It wasn't my first choice. I didn't need the money. I had my own television production company with my partner, Jason. We were making money hand over. I mean, like I said earlier, I was making way more money producing independent television than I ever made in the professional wrestling business. So it's not that I needed the gig, but it, for a variety of reasons, made sense at that time. But it wasn't like a passion project for me. And I didn't have anything to do with the business side of it. So it was just like, okay, sure, I'll do it. But some of it was fun. But it was never like I never got into a down period about TNA. WCW, if the answer is what kept me going, probably my family. First and foremost, my job is to protect and provide for my family. That's my first rule of business every single day. So that kept me going. Otherwise, if I wouldn't have had a wife and kids, I might have said, fuck it, I'm out of here. See you guys. Have fun.
Nick Sims wants to know, fun hypothetical, if Eric and WCW did put Vince out of business back in the day, do you think Vince would have eventually come back with a new wrestling company?
I have to believe so. First of all, yeah, I don't think he would have ever completely gone out of business. He would have had to change his business. He would have had to reorganize his business. But he would have never gone out of business.
All right, let's keep it going. We got our place here. Devil Vamp wants to know, seeing where AEW is struggling right now, I think Cody leaving was the point where the company lost its way. How much of an impact do you believe Cody leaving had on AEW?
I can't really answer that because I don't know what Cody's influence was while he was in AEW. I think the mistake perhaps that's been made is, I think when Tony decided he wanted to take over creative and he wanted to be the guy and he wanted to be the president, the chairman of the board, the chief executive officer, the head of creative, all of that, it probably killed a lot of the motivation from someone like Cody, who saw AEW as an opportunity to realize a vision that he had. I don't know that. I've never had a conversation with Cody about that, but I'm pretty sure I'm either 100% right or mostly right when I say that. Tony's mistake was not so much letting Cody go, but creating a scenario where Cody wanted to go.
Yeah.
And that same scenario is what's keeping AEW from growing to this very day.
Esteban at Steve EJ's got a fun one. Beverage of choice while cooking, grilling, or smoking?
Ooh, depends on the time of the year. It's really hard not to enjoy an ice cold beer while smoking in the summertime. Like on my Big Green Egg or my rye. Usually my smoking I do on the rec deck, or excuse me, on the Big Green Egg. Grilling I typically do on the rec deck. But if I'm smoking something because it's a process and you want to smell the, you're just out there, man. It's the closest you're going to get to being a fucking caveman sitting around a campfire with a club in your hand, eating a piece of dinosaur you just killed, right? You're sitting around that smoker or that grill, smelling the food as it cooks. That's awesome. And it's tough to beat an ice cold beer when you're doing that.
DAI Robs 11 says, we often hear about how Charles the Godfather Wright almost signed with WCW, but were there any other mid-card talents that never wrestled for WCW that you almost signed? Billy Gunn, Bob Holly, for example.
Okay, so here's a surprise. This is the first time I've heard that the Godfather almost signed with WCW.
Oh, okay.
That's news to me. That doesn't mean it's not true, by the way. People think, right, when they listen to the show or they're wrestling fans or they read or hear whatever about WCW, because I was president of the company, they think that I was involved in every single decision, in every acquisition, in every change in marketing, every decision about a pay-per-view, who built the sets, what the sets look like. People think that I was involved in every single decision as the president of the company. Guess what, folks? It's not true. That's not how it works, right? So there is a good chance that Terry Taylor, Kevin Sullivan, perhaps even Ric Flair at one point, anybody who was involved in creative or head of creative could have easily had a conversation with Godfather, could have been well on their way to negotiating a contract, and it might not even have been on my radar. It might not have come across my desk until it was time to sign off on it. So could have happened. It's the first time I'm aware of it. As far as other people, none that I'm aware of. You know, there was no Undertaker conversations. There was no Shawn Michaels conversations. There was really the only people I had conversations with are the people that called me. Randy Savage, Scott Hall, Kevin Nash. Those are the conversations I had.
Well, let's have a conversation about our new affiliate partnership with Fanatics and the WWE Shop. This is an easy way to support 83 Weeks and your other favorite podcasts. Shop official WWE gear and apparel by using our special website, shopwrestlingmerch.com, or the easy way. Hopefully you're watching on our YouTube. You see that QR code. All you got to do is scan that. That is going to take you to the WWE Fanatics experience, and it's going to support 83 Weeks. Eric, you're a businessman. I would love to get your take on this. This talks about how good Fanatics does their job, that WWE has grown so big, they went, we'll entrust somebody now to run our merchandise, and that person they picked is a company that is good as Fanatics.
I think that's awesome. Here's what I think is more awesome. And I mean this with all my heart. One of the mistakes I made financially, when Jim Ross called me back in whatever year it was, 2002, because Vince wanted me to come into WWE. And I said, thanks, but no thanks. For a variety of reasons. I've talked about it here before. But I turned down that opportunity. Had I gone, it would have been a part of the NWO takeover. Had I gone, I would probably have found myself included in the negotiation with the NWO talent, where I would have gotten a taste of NWO merchandise, like Scott Hall, like Kevin Nash, like Hulk Hogan. But I didn't go. I wasn't interested at the time. So I passed on the opportunity. And as a result, I don't make a cent, not a penny, off NWO merchandise. But guess what? Those of you loyal listeners who've been with me for over 5 years here, along with Conrad Thompson, now have an opportunity to right that wrong. You have an opportunity to do what should have been done a long time ago, which was to allow me to participate, even at the most minuscule level, in the revenue generated by NWO merchandise. And now Fanatics is giving us that opportunity, giving you that opportunity, because you, as a loyal supporter of this show, can now order an NWO shirt right here on 83 Weeks using that QR code. And guess what? I'm at least going to get a taste. Just a little taste. A tiny, 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 tiny little taste. And guess what? You can make that happen by ordering not only NWO merchandise, but let me also remind you that NWO merchandise 25 years after the fact, give or take, is one of the hottest selling items in the WWE merchandise catalog world freaking wide. So come on, help our brother out.
ShopWrestlingMerch.com. Hit that QR code. You can get the classics like the NWO. You can get the new stuff, the Yeet, the Mommy's Always on Top, your American Nightmare gear. It's all there. Scan that QR code. Go to the Fanatics WWE shop and support 83 Weeks. You can shop with confidence for all your favorite WWE superstar tees, hoodies, caps, belts, and more at that WWE shop. And like we said, use that QR code and you can support the show. And we thank Fanatics and the WWE shop for partnering up with 83 Weeks. All right, Eric, just a few more and we will get out of here. Let's see what we've got. Derek, Avenger261081, he tweeted us at 83 Weeks. He said, if you were offered a chance to take in a job in or out of wrestling, what would it be and why? So you said you don't want to run a promotion. You said you don't want to be an executive. But if you did pop back into wrestling, what would that job be, Eric?
I wouldn't want a job. The reason I wouldn't want a job in a wrestling business is, first and foremost, it would require travel. I don't like to travel. Yeah. And if I do travel, it's because it's something I really look forward to doing. I still doing appearances. I'm going to be out in New Jersey. Doing a show for Best Trivia Ever, right?
Whoa.
Yeah. Can't wait. It's going to be a blast. January 24th, the Bolero Snort Brewery. Do you get it? Bolero Snort Brewery. I can't wait. In Carlstadt, New Jersey. Best Trivia Ever. I love doing the show. We have an absolute blast. I love doing stuff like this. I love going to a convention every now and then. I love going to an event. That kind of stuff's fun for me because I like to engage with the fans. But to travel every single week ain't happening. It's just not. So there's not a job in wrestling that really interests me. Again, don't take it wrong. I love the business. I'm grateful as hell that I had an opportunity to work in the business. I wouldn't have changed anything in terms of career choices, right? But that time has come and gone. It's time for a different chapter in my life. There are new projects that I'm equally as excited about, if not more, than I ever was wrestling. I'd rather pursue that. I like doing this. This is fun for me. I don't have to go anywhere. I like my life just the way it is. I don't want anybody to fuck with it.
Yeah, I don't know anybody. It's like you said, I don't know anybody that wants a job. Do you want to have something that you have fun at and get paid for? That's a different thing, like you said earlier. But I don't think anybody wants to sign up for a job. But we have to have it somewhere. And
Well,
you're in a good,
look, what
you're in a
if I
good
was
place.
if I was in my 20s, my 30s, even into my
Yeah.
40s, different conversation.
Yeah,
But at
everybody's
this
got a
point
different place.
in my life, when I step back, this is going to sound like I'm bragging, and believe me, I'm not, because I've had my fair share of ups and downs, and I may not have hit rock bottom, but I could describe it in fucking great detail, right? But I'm not there now, and I have an amazing marriage. My wife and I have been together for over 42 years now, married 40, together 42. I have an amazing son, an amazing daughter, and I have an incredible relationship with both of them. Amazing. I have a grandson I love dearly. I live in a nice house. I'm going to brag. But I live in a part of the country that people from all over the world travel to because it's such a beautiful part of the country, the scenery. I live, literally, you could see Yellowstone National Park from my deck. So I don't want anything different. I like what I have. And I don't let anything get in the way of it, including a lot of travel and being away from my family or my home. It ain't happening. Not anymore.
Traveling is just you do it with comedy as well. It's just a beating. It's the non-fun part of whatever you're doing. You just go, in stand-up comedy. I love going to the club. I don't mind staying in a hotel. I like doing the shows and interacting with everybody. It's the 7-hour drive to Augusta, the 7-hour drive over to Nashville. Just the road for a lot of these. It's the same thing in the wrestling business. The road weeds out a lot of people that are even good and want to do it. It just kills a lot of people and their passion for the game, whatever it is.
And the funny thing is I would, if I had a choice of a 3-hour flight or a 7-hour drive, yeah. If I had a choice of a 2-hour flight and a 7-hour drive, I'll drive it every time. Flying is brutal.
Oh, God.
It's just brutal. I hate it. People, like somebody would call me to book me for a convention. It's like, dude, the convention part is free, but you're going to have to pay through the nose to get me on a plane. That flight's going to be really expensive. But I'll show up and have fun with y'all for free. That part's free. It's getting there and back is going to cost you some money.
There's the squeeze and the juice right there, my friend. Jim in Buffalo, he wants to know, Eric, why do you think many of those in the wrestling media are not being more aggressive regarding the current AEW off-screen controversy? The allegation regarding 2 talents and an NDA is serious, and if it was a different major company, they would probably be all over it. What's your thoughts?
All right, Jim in Buffalo, please, when you hear this response, I'm not attacking you. I'm attacking the idea that an NDA is anybody's fucking business. Why is it anybody's business outside of the people who have that agreement? The very fact that it's a non-disclosure agreement suggests that it's not supposed to be disclosed. What in the fuck is so hard to understand about that? It's not anybody's business. It shouldn't have been brought up. It's stupid. That's how I feel about that.
See, I had to get you hot on the way out. You know what I mean?
I'm disappointed. I'm not in Jim, because it's out there, man. Jim's not the only one that's feeling that way. But all of a sudden, who made it anybody's fucking business? I've signed NDAs. Anybody that's anybody in any kind of an important position or negotiating for something or investing in something or reviewing something, because you may possibly get involved or may possibly invest. NDAs are a part of life. Look at Congress. Those motherfuckers have a slush fund so they can bang their assistants, and when their assistants come along and sue them, there's a slush fund in Congress that pays everybody out if they sign an NDA. So quit making a big deal out of it. It's none of your freaking business if somebody's got an NDA or not. I don't know why that all of a sudden should be public information and people have the right to it. Fucking business.
By the way, I think one of the common misconceptions is everybody hears somebody signs an NDA and there's nefarious things going on. You can work for a company where they don't want their company secrets that you've been working on getting out there. There's a myriad of things you can sign an NDA for. Not all of them are shady. Yes, there are some shady ones, but there's no telling why. You can know, financials of a company that they don't want out there. You can know creative process. You can know, my wife works for a engineering firm. She signs an NDA. It's nothing nefarious. It's
because
we have a company that, yes.
She's working on proprietary technology that's being developed. Now, I don't know this, but I'm assuming this if she has to sign an NDA and she's an engineer, because she's working with technologies or procedures that are proprietary, meaning this company created it and they have to protect their intellectual property. And the way you would protect your intellectual property is by having people who are exposed to it agree never to disclose it. It doesn't mean you're banging somebody in the warehouse.
There we go. Jim from Buffalo. It's out there. And like you said, and this isn't heat on Jim. It's everybody's talking about it. And I'm on your side. I'm like,
it's because a couple of dipshits in the internet wrestling community, namely Nick Hausman, decided to make some big damn deal out of it and spread a rumor. That's all he did. He spread a rumor. He didn't even spread what he created it. That makes it worse. Create a rumor is worse than repeating a rumor. He created a rumor, and I was all this NDA stuff. Like, that bullshit, childish nonsense. Let it go. Let it go. Watch the product. Have fun. Quit spending time thinking about shit that's none of your business.
Speaking of business, if your business targets 25 to 50-year-old men, there's no better place to advertise than right here with us on 83 Weeks. You've heard us do ads for some of the same companies for a year, and new people jumping on all the time. Why is that? Because it works. And with our super targeted audience, there's very little waste. Go to ADVERTISEWITHERIC.com and find out more about how advertising with 83 Weeks can help your business, your product, your event. It all goes down at ADVERTISEWITHERIC.com. And I want to make sure we bring up our buddy Conrad. He's not here with us. I appreciate him letting me sit in. I appreciate.
Well, you know why he's not here? He's partying in Miami. Did you hear about all
is.
those cops and all the security and helicopters? All kinds of shit was happening in Miami. I go, what is going on with Miami? Next thing I know, I get a text message from Conrad saying, hey, I'm in Miami. Dude, trouble goes wherever he goes.
I think not. But when he's back, you can save with Conrad, because right now your home is worth probably more than it has ever been. Combine all your debts into one monthly payment, or maybe do all those home upgrades you've always dreamed of. And on top of that, skip 2 house payments. Put that newfound equity to work by going to SaveWithConrad.com. He will take care of you as this new year rolls in. You want to, hey, part of your finances, maybe your New Year's resolution, SaveWithConrad.com sounds like a good way to get that on the right track. Also, as always, go to BischoffBook.com or to Amazon to get Grateful by our friend here, Eric Bischoff. A beautiful book, fascinating book. You can read the reviews everywhere. Everyone is loving this. Go to Amazon or go to BischoffBook.com. Like and subscribe. Leave a 5-star rating on all of our platforms. Leave a comment below. Let us know what you thought about today's episode. Follow us on social media. He's at eBischoff, at Hey It's Conrad. Instagram at The Real Bischoff, Eric Bischoff, at Hey It's Conrad, and on Facebook, eBischoff and Hey It's Conrad as well. And of course, follow the show. Stay up to date on everything that 83 Weeks is doing at 83 Weeks on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And make sure if you're watching on the YouTube, like and subscribe. Turn on those notifications at 83 Weeks on YouTube.com. You'll know if there's ever any live shows, whenever a new clip drops, or full episodes drop. That's all going down. 83 weeks on
also,
YouTube.
Casio, Strictly Business. If you subscribe to Strictly Business, or excuse me, to 83 weeks right now, do it right now. Subscribe and like. You'll also be notified as soon as Strictly Business, which is becoming one of the more popular podcasts in the wrestling genre. So you'll get them both for the price of nothing, just a subscription.
Yeah, close to 100K over there. That's our next goal. So we got to get the push going, everybody. Go to 83 weeks on YouTube.com. Like Eric said, you'll not only get 83 weeks, but you'll get those notifications for Strictly Business as well. And look, we know Strictly Business is successful and growing and rising, and it's hot because, as we saw from a lot of these questions today, a lot of people want to know about that business side of wrestling, and they want to come to you and hear it straight from your mouth. Plus, all the merchandise is found at boxinggimmicks.com. You can get whatever you need. The LWO logo, that's 83 weeks. Context is king. You've got the Mucker Feather hoodie, which is always.
How about that Ninja Star shirt? I love that. I want to get one of those. I want to have one of those shipped to my house so I can wear it on the show. I love that Ninja. That is the logo from the original Ninja Star Wars game that I used when I went into pitch Vern Gagne, and I ended up getting a job. It's all because of that Ninja Star logo you see right there. That is a piece of wrestling history.
Go to 83weeksmerch.com. That'll get you locked in for everything 83 weeks. Stickers, cups, koozies, hats, hoodies, shirts. It's all there. 83weeksmerch.com. We want to thank everybody who watched us in the live chat. We appreciate that, getting up early with us and hanging out. Eric, thank you for letting me sit in and pinch hit with you. Always a pleasure to talk to you, brother.
Always fun seeing you, Casio. And I think I'm going to be down there within the next month or two. Are you coming to, you're going to be in Florida?
I will.
All right. I'll see you there, brother.
See you there. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out with us. For Mr. Eric Bischoff, I'm Casio. Thanks for the help, Mr. Dave Silva. Everybody, see you later. Stay mashed.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson here to tell you a little more about what AdFreeShows.com is all about. Get early, ad-free access to more than a dozen of your favorite wrestling podcasts every single week, starting at just $9. That's less than 20 cents an episode each month. And yes, you can listen to them all directly through Apple Podcasts or your regular podcast apps. How easy is that? Ad-Free Shows also has thousands of hours worth of bonus content and docuseries like Title Chase, Eric Fires Back, Conversations with Conrad, and The Insiders. Plus new series like The Book with David Crockett, Monday Mailbags with Mike Chioda and Nick Patrick, and a whole lot more. And you want to talk about early? You can't get any earlier than listening to the shows live. You can be a part of the live studio audience as we record the podcast. Plus, ride shotgun alongside your favorite childhood heroes for live watch-alongs, Q&As, and other interactive experiences every single month. Come on now, see for yourself what thousands of other wrestling fans from around the world have discovered, that AdFreeShows.com is the best value in wrestling. Check it out today, and hey, when you do, the first week is completely free. AdFreeShows.com.